Welcome to the podcast that buffs your Hearthstone game. This is Velen's Chosen.
Not all who wander are lost.
Greetings, visionaries, and welcome to Velen's Chosen. Whether you're a competitive player, an arena specialist, a deck-building visionary, or just like having a bit of fun, we can help you buff your game and achieve your Hearthstone goals. I wonder if I just said achieve or achieve, but we're talking achievement here, so that we're going to stick with that. This is episode 188. Wow, 188 episodes already. I am Grant Gould, your first host that you hear from every week. This week, we have no lore master. Sadly, she's been feeling a little under the weather today, and so she needed to bow out, which is totally fine. But in her place, we have a very, very special guest and friend of the show, STC2 Forever. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller. You know, I've been listening to you guys since the beginning of time. I'm just so excited to be here. I just can't wait.
Have you ever listened? So you've been listening back to when the first couple episodes of Velen's Chosen, like back when Andrew was on and back when the production value was, oh boy, very, very much less than it is now.
Yeah, it's been on and off. Like, I really started getting going with Hearthstone probably around like Mean Streets. So that's kind of when I started listening to everybody. But I just remember when I started listening to podcasts and trying to get involved, like, all these podcasts were using these big terms, and I had no idea what they were talking about. Just the simple things. And it wasn't until you guys I said, oh, by the way, meta means this. This is what a meta is. Oh, okay, I understand the term now. It's about, you know, the play styles and what people are playing. Oh, okay, that's what they keep referring to, meta. Okay, got it. You know, so You guys have been there for me for a very long time, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
You know, I wonder if we shouldn't do a recap episode of some of that stuff, like a terms episode, because I'll be honest, like if you've ever tried to teach Hearthstone to a person who's never really played it before, and you start using all the lingo that just kind of goes with a card game in general, you find that they act as if you're speaking like a foreign language. It's English, but I don't understand. It's like reading Shakespeare. You know it's English, but you're kind of getting some of the words, but you're not getting a lot of the other words and the phrases and the meanings and the connotations and stuff. So probably should do that sometime.
And it gets funny when you start talking to people about things that you assume everybody has the same understanding of, and then you realize you also have a different understanding. You're like, wait, hold on. I thought everybody knew what this meant. Oh, I'm wrong. I'm thinking differently? Oh, that's interesting. You know, I'm a lawyer at background, so I'm always thinking about like what people are thinking about and interpreting. So I'm always critical about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I hear you there. Word meaning can change depending on who you're talking to. So SC2, you told me at the beginning when we were talking in the pre-show that I can call you Mike. So
yes,
you're old school like me. You go, we have a real name that we want to be known by. So listeners, SC2 Forever is also known as Mike.
Yeah, like you missed it really hit home when I went to BlizzCon and I'm introducing myself to people. I'm like, this doesn't seem right. Hi, I'm SC2. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I mean, for some people, of course, it makes sense. But for me, when I was saying it, I'm like, it doesn't feel normal to like. For my own personality. So I'm like, hi, I'm Mike. I go by SC2 Forever. You know, whatever you want, you know.
How many times have you been to BlizzCon?
One time. I am going next year. It was interesting. The only person I didn't meet that I really wanted to meet last BlizzCon, other than you guys, because you didn't travel, was Rob. He was the one guy I missed in passing because I think he was at the Overwatch stuff a lot. And I was like, man, I kept missing him. But, you know, I got to meet Andrew, all the Coin Concede guys. But yeah, BlizzCon was a different experience. Listeners, if you ever have a chance to go, I highly recommend.
Well, you know, I have a different job now, so I might be able to make it out sometime. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I'm probably a little bit late to the party getting tickets, but
I don't know.
New work means new potential opportunities, so we'll see. I definitely have wanted to meet the people in our community for a long time. It's at this point in time, it used to be only time prohibitive. Now it's probably cost prohibitive. So we'll see. One of these days. It's sort of a dream of mine to get out there, and I know it is for Eve as well. Because I also want to give Rob and Andrew and Eve, like a hug, because when you know people for years
Yeah.
and you've never actually had the privilege of shaking their hand or giving them a hug, it's interesting. It's kind of like a marvel of the 21st century. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You can get to know people without ever having shaken their hand.
Yep.
So, well, anyways, so Mike, let's get to know you a little bit. Just kind of get your gaming background, your Hearthstone background. So, how did you get into gaming, card games, Hearthstone? Like, how far back does this go?
Oh, it's been interesting. I think I started gaming just like many people my age. I'll date myself. I'm in my mid 30s, I guess.
Yeah, same.
Was NES. We had an NES growing up. We had Mario. I think I was the first of my friends to figure this out. And some people haven't heard of this before, which really is amazing to me. But it'll blow your mind if you don't know about this already. So you've played Duck Hunt before, right? Like in Mario.
Yeah.
Did you know that the second controller can control the duck?
No.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Do you know how amazing it was having
that
a little brother? And every time I shot the duck, I made it. And every time he tried, the duck kept going left and right backwards. And yeah, if you plug it into the second controller slot, turns out you can control it. And it was just like, I've been doing that ever since,
Oh my gosh! I wish my mom hadn't sold my Nintendo, because I've had one for years, and I went back and visited her recently. I said, "Hey, where's my Nintendo?" She's like, "Oh, I sold it at a garage sale." And it was kind of like, "You what?"
It was a whole $10 we got. What again? That's hilarious.
I had that. I want to try that now because I want to play with my kids. It's like, all right, I'll control the duck, see if you can hit it. That's a thing on my bucket list. That's happening.
There you go. So if you guys have a NES still somewhere, definitely test it.
So you're like me. You got into the 8-bit NES, Nintendo Entertainment System back in the 80s.
Yep.
And then how did you get into Hearthstone and card games?
It's funny. So I collected cards when I was a kid, but I never played any of the games. I had the most random cards. I think it's just because my neighbors had them and I was interested. Everybody was collecting Pokemon cards, and I had a set when I was smaller, but I played one or two games. I collected Star Wars cards, and I think I never played it. I just had a bunch of cards. I remember I had like a really like expensive card. I had like a light side like Death Star, and I was like, this feels like it's valuable. But I've never really got into card games like ever. Hearthstone is the first card game I've ever actually played and got into like super hooked. And it was pretty much because of World of Warcraft.
Did you play a lot of World of Warcraft?
I've played on and off since it's come out. I never for like really long stints. I remember it was December a couple years ago. It was right before the holidays, and I was doing all these raids with my group, and I was starting to get a little bit bored between matches and stuff, and I'm thinking, I'm going down to Florida with my family. I can't bring my laptop with me to play World of Warcraft. What game can I play when I'm down there? What can I do? Then someone mentioned Hearthstone in passing. Like, what is this thing? So in between the wipes, when everybody was dying, I would queue a game on ladder and like watch that, and then all of a sudden I just never went back to the raid. After a week or two, and I've been playing ever since. That's kind of how I got into Hearthstone.
Wow. Yeah, my story is similar. I was a big Warcraft 3 player, and then I never played WoW. Like I was offered free keys when it first came out. Like, here, come and play. Here's free time and this and that. And I had just newly gotten married, and I knew that if I had ventured into the world of Warcraft, that the world of happy marriage would have gone bye-bye. So
two very distinct. Like the Venn diagrams are completely separate. Sometimes I understand that. I have two young kids too, and a wife. So even with Hearthstone, it can get into that neighborhood depending on how much I'm doing. So I'm very familiar with that. Yeah.
Yeah, the male ability to compartmentalize and be focused on a Hearthstone game and blot the world out can be sort of a frustrating thing for the other better half, I guess you could say.
Yeah. It's a good reprieve,
for
all parties.
So what you said you've been playing since Mean Streets? Is that when you've been playing seriously?
Yeah, I started playing like I always play serious, quote unquote, whenever I play a game, just because I like the challenge, I like the strategy. But like when I started, I was very, very, very bad, and it took a very, very, very long time to improve. And that was like my whole process. Like I was, I was ranked 20 to 15 for months and months at a time. I just felt like there was nothing I could do. And then once I started interacting with the community more, listening to Velen's Chosen, listening to some other podcasts, watching streamers, interacting, learning the lingo, watching people explain their mistakes, then I started to learn and grow, and I've just been addicted ever since.
Yeah. It's amazing how, like, just listening and kind of imbibing content, you maybe the people even on the content aren't always giving you the exact how to. They're at least pointing you in the right direction and providing a sort of camaraderie. I agree. That was very similarly my story. I'd played Magic before. I was a Hearthstone player. So Hearthstone was especially appealing. I don't know about how it is for you, but the price tag on Hearthstone has always been easy for me.
Yeah.
Compared by comparison.
Yeah, and I think I'm privileged in a sense. Like I play a lot of Hearthstone, so I get a lot of gold every expansion. So usually, like, I feel like I get the full card set with very little amount of money. Like I pre-order. I guess it is a lot of money. Pre-order both bundles, and that's pretty much it. I have enough gold to buy like 60, 70 packs just from hoarding stuff. And I don't even do quests that often. If I'm playing a class that I really like and the quest comes up, great. If not, I just roll and hopefully tomorrow's a better one. But yeah, the price tag can make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably buy every set of cards, like every expansion of cards that has been released to date, plus the adventures, and still be less than some Magic decks that exist out there in the competitive sphere. Just one deck.
Yeah, you better really like that deck.
Yeah, you better really like that deck. I guess you could always say you can trade it in, maybe, like get some resale on it, but that's not me. I just like having my digital thing I can carry in my pocket instead of having a suitcase full of cards.
There's nothing like having a 5-10 minute game. You can't really go out Friday night Magic every time when you've got 2 kids, but you can do 10 minutes after the kids go down, and if they wake up in 9 minutes, well, you can quit. Or they can wait. Or they learn to wait.
You can do what I've done forever is, like, if they wake up, I go lay down with them and I just play a game while they go to sleep.
Yep. Side story, I think you'd appreciate this. So I went to DreamHack Atlanta, met a lot of great people there, and I was doing fairly well in the tournament for a while. And then once I realized I wasn't going to make it all the way through, my daughter, she's 2 years old at the time. She's like calling me because it was just right after BlizzCon, but she knew I was in Atlanta. She's like, "Where are you, Daddy? I want to see you." I'm like, "All right, I'm just going to go home." And then I realized that DreamHack, it's free for kids of a certain age. So I'm like, let me just bring my kids so they can just see what I'm doing. So she walks up to the Hearthstone counter and sees all the people. She walks all the way up to purple and says, "You're purple."
Whoa.
So when my daughter goes to sleep, we read a book and everything, but then while she asks me to sit there with her. So I pull out my iPad and I watch Hearthstone. And she's asking me, who's this? I like Osmo. I want to watch Purple. So it's just interesting, like seeing her, like I was like so taken aback. And you should have seen Purple. He was like, "What is happening here?" It was really funny.
That's cool. It's charming that she's that little. She could recognize him, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. That's the facial recognition thing in kids sometimes. I tell you what.
And she asked the funniest questions. Like, we'll be watching a game or something. She goes, "Who's winning?" And I'm like, "Well, you know when the face explodes. Yeah, but before that, who's winning?" I'm like, "Well, it's a little complicated. Like, I think this person might be winning. Is this person better than the other player? No, I mean, everybody's good. Everybody's like," such an interesting thing trying to explain to, young person.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I get that question a lot, and today I finally ground out the Dalaran heist, not the heroic version, but I finished it all. I ground it out. I did the 3rd, 4th, and 5th wing today, and I did them out of order. I did the 5th wing on one pass, which I was like, hype. Yes, I don't have to do 12 bosses in a row more than once.
Oh, nice.
Ground that out, and then it took me forever to do the 3rd wing. So I did it, and then my son was like, "Daddy, you playing Hearthstone?" So he'd come and perch on the arm of the chair I was sitting in. And when the face would explode, you're like, "Yay!" He'd clap his hands. It's like all those dreams of fame are being being touched right here with the applause of my son.
My favorite part of expansion season is I get my daughter to open my packs for me. She gets the joy out of it, and I don't have to do it all. So it's win-win.
Same. I do the same thing. My kids are mad at me if I open all my packs.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's kind of a punishment. Like if they say, "Hey, is pack day tomorrow, Dad?" Yep, yep. Can I open your packs? Yep, you can open my packs if you're good. And so they'll screw up or something. Like they'll sass or they'll not clean up the room when they should. I'm like, all right, you don't get to open the packs. No.
And on the other side, like they throw paint against the wall, and you're like, it's perfectly fine. They can open the pack still. But I need to see the cards. you know.
That's kind of right.
Then they learn from that. They're like, but last week, it's not last week. Today's today. Today, no paint on the walls.
Right. Exactly right. So how long have you been playing Hearthstone before you hit Legend for the first time?
Man, I think if I remember correctly, I think a year. It took
A
me,
year.
I think, a year, and I knock on wood, I've hit it every month since then. So I think since, well, maybe was it a year? Maybe it was less than a year. I think I've been hitting Legend for about a year and a half now, and I started 2 years ago. Yeah, okay, so a year.
Mhm.
Probably took me around a year to get Legend, and then I just been doing it ever since.
Been doing it ever since.
Mhm.
And what's your you are because you're on my friends list and you regularly you're orange and you've been getting up there like in the triple digits. Like what's the highest you peaked at so far?
I've had some interesting months. I always end up like I always finish way less than where I go in oftentimes, and that's
Mhm.
part of the learning process. But the highest I've gotten, and it was pretty amazing, was the month that they opened the Legend ladder, like the online real
Mhm.
time one, was rank
Right, right.
14 Legend.
Oh gosh. Whoo, so double
Yeah,
digits.
that was fun. And I was
Oh
playing
man.
a nerfed deck. I was playing
What?
Spell Hunter post nerf. Hmm.
And was it just beaten matchups? Like just people weren't ready for it or didn't think that
I
anybody be running that or
I was so there's this streamer who does a lot of like she works for Icy Veins. Her name is Katrina. She's a
Mhm.
really good Hearthstone player, and I would just watch her all the time. And she was playing, that list, and I was watching her
Mhm.
discuss the changes because of the nerfs. And that was the month she also went double rank 1 finishes on 2 servers with that list too. So I was just
Oh my gosh.
learning. For me, I'm kind of a what is it, a Rex, or like I want to play the decks that win, and I want
Spike.
a Spike, and I want to learn them
Mhm.
really well. And I guess my one issue is it's hard for me to switch gears. Like when a deck stops working, I still want to play it, you know.
Sure.
So I realized I was really liking the list, and they nerfed it, and I'm like, why? Mid range is still just as strong. They didn't touch that one. So
Mhm.
I just learned how to play it, and it worked out, and I really enjoyed it. And I played a ton of Hunter that season. That's kind of how I met Sidisi. He was here last week.
Mhm.
Really great guy. We were
Mhm.
talking about Mech Hunter and all these things we were testing. But every time a new expansion comes out, I feel like I'm out in the forest, trying to find my way back again, trying to figure out what I like, what I
Mhm.
don't like. Sometimes it takes months, but once I find something I like, that's what I'm doing until the expansion changes or a nerf comes, and then I'm one of those guys going, "What am I gonna do now?" Throwing my hands in the air, like there goes my deck.
Mm.
And it's I have a weird personality when it comes to deck selection. Like for me, it's about what decks I want to lose against. So I want to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
I don't play a ton of aggro decks because I want to not concede from having nothing to do. Like when you run out of cards and you're just like, all right, I give up. I'd rather be the
Sure.
person that gets run over by aggro than the person that runs out of steam as aggro. So I play a lot of control
Sure.
mid range type things. Um, but yeah,
So you don't
that's
mind dying with a bunch of cards in your hand.
well, you make a mistake when that happens. But I rather that, yeah. Um, because you learn those
so
types of situations, yeah.
so your style's more control combo.
Actually,
You're
not
more into
combo. I'm still like the terms are so alien to me because when I was doing a lot of research about what's combo mean, what's aggro mean, what's control mean, and
Mhm.
oftentimes it's like backwards. Like they'll say like mid range beats aggro and control beats mid range and aggro beats control. That's weird. Control usually beats aggro. So to me, the way I think about it is I don't like doing a lot of OTK decks, a lot of combo solitaire type stuff. I
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
kind of matches where I feel like I have something to do every turn and I'm working towards something. Um, So like this season, I'm playing a lot of Freeze Mage,
Hmm.
Cyclone Mage. I've been enjoying just because I felt the need of some randomness. Like I was playing some decks
Sure.
before where there wasn't a lot of randomness to it, and I was not that I
Hmm.
was bored. I just wanted to have a different feel of things. And the other interesting thing about the way I pick decks is I hate mirror matches. I don't know why. Maybe it's my ego. I just don't want to face someone who's playing the same class as me and lose because it means I'm not as good. That's just my ego thing. So I always pick like obscure ish tier 2 decks that see play but you don't see them like day in and day out. Like if I was
Yeah,
playing Mech
yeah.
Hunter or Bomb Hunter, seeing Bomb Hunters all day, I'd be like I either want to beat all of them or just not play against them. So I try to find decks that are like 5% of people playing, not like 20.
You're the first person I think I've ever heard articulate that, but I have felt very similar things before. In fact, everybody knows that I've been trying to grind out the last 50 wins on my warrior to get golden warrior because then I'll have all 9
Mm-hmm.
golden classes. And it's been a bit of a slog. It's because warrior is not a class I enjoy playing too much.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you that I like playing it decently well enough until I hit a mirror match. And then it's like I actually was playing a match the other day and I queued up against the warrior and I was like, maybe I'll just concede because I just don't want to play this game. I don't want
Yeah.
to play against the mirror. And then once I found out it was Dragon Warrior and I was playing Bomb War, I'm like, oh, I'm going to beat you. So it wasn't the same list, so I was cool playing with it even though it was the same class.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, I don't like playing mirrors. Although when I played Rogue Mirrors, I enjoyed it more because I view
Yeah.
myself as a pretty decent rogue player. So I would be like, all right, I can beat you. And
Yeah,
then
I
if I
could see that.
lost, I usually would learn. I would be from the attitude of learning. But there's some matches that like I don't want to deal with. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't want to put up with. And most of the time, it's the mirror. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So what
mhm.
if you were to like say like pick a deck that you've loved over the like the past couple years, and like really personifies kind of like your style of play and like how you like to play. What deck would that be?
I think probably Spell Hunter because it was kind of like it had its day. It was strong at a certain point, but it was never like the top tier deck. And there were better hunter decks, but there were so many different types of hunter decks, nobody really knew what you were playing. And I
Sure.
really liked it because you were setting up certain terms and you're trying to set up towards something.
Hmm.
But you also have ways to kind of it's not like an all-in plan. Like you can make changes. Sometimes you can go face with kill command, sometimes you don't. um,
Right.
and for me it's about I want to play a deck where I'm learning something.
Hmm.
And I think I'm still at the point in my experience where I just enjoy learning, and I do better when I'm in my learning mode than when I'm in my
Right.
I have to win mode. So like
Yes.
there's a book that I was reading that made me think of you when I read it. It's called The Practicing Mind. It's about
Hmm.
this guy who he used to be a uh, a music like a classical pianist, like repair person. So
Hmm.
he would do all kinds of stuff like that. Like he would repair pianos and everything. But then he wrote a book about his experience, and it was he would talk about like when you're a musician and you're practicing something, you're practicing, you're not expecting perfection, you're not like measuring, there's not an end goal in mind unless you have some event that you're going to be at. You're not making judgments as to, oh, I'm going to make a mistake or not. You're learning. You have this opened young person's mind in a sense where you're just focusing
Hmm.
on the now, and you're learning. So for me, I try to put myself in those situations and avoid tilt as much as possible, but like anybody, like you just you face into things. But I like to
Hmm.
find decks where there's an interesting thing to learn, and I can tell that I'm learning something. Like I always get frustrated when I'm losing and I don't know why. All of a sudden I'm like, well, I don't know what else to do. I'm just losing. I don't know what the situation is. So I always try to like ask people and get involved to like improve myself. So Spell Hunter, I really like that deck for a very long time.
Yeah, Spell Hunter. I enjoyed playing that one. I'm kind of a flighty person sometimes, where I just like variety, so I flip from
Mm-hmm.
one thing to another. But I can definitely. I hear what you're saying about wanting to learn something. I love playing matches where I can sit back and go, okay, if I had done this thing different and if I had done or not done this thing, and you kind of replay the thing, I could have probably won. Or where did I lose that game? I lost it at X point,
Yep.
and I can remember clearly. And when I learned that, it's like, okay, good. And you start rubbing your hands together, like, all right, let's queue up another match. And
Yep.
when that kind of relay, I guess you could say, is happening in my mind after a match, then I feel like I'm like being productive, I guess you could say, when I'm
Mm-hmm.
playing and not just grinding games and like, okay, just get the thing done, check the box, you're
Because
playing a game as opposed to just trying to check boxes for wins and losses.
you'll honestly remember that way more than whether or not you won that game. Like, you might look back and go, I remember this play was such an interesting play, and then you might forget whether you won or lost at the end of the day, but you remember that that was the right play to do, and you figured that out. I've had situations
Right.
like that where I'm like, okay, if I'm mindful enough to remember, I have to also think what my opponent is going to do next turn, and I go, all right, I'm going to play all these cards. Oh wait, he already played Doctor Boom. He's got the microbot things that summons 3. Maybe I shouldn't play a whole bunch of minions because he's probably going to brawl next turn. Let me just have the 1 out
Mm-hmm.
there or 2.
Mm-hmm.
He brawls. Great. Now I'm going to flood the board. Good luck with that. I'm just so
Right.
excited that I was able to like slow down and think about it. I don't remember if I won the game or not, but I remember like that kind of educational thing.
It's kind of like in school, if you answered a question in class. Like I remember these kind of days where the professor or the teacher would ask a very kind of a difficult question, and you would like, well, I think I know what the answer is, and you raise your hand and you give the answer, and the professor says, "That's exactly right. Good for you." Like I didn't think anybody was going to get that. You
Mm-hmm.
don't even remember what the question is. You just remember the approval and the pat on the back
That's
from the
right.
professor saying, "You got that right. Good job. Way to
Mm-hmm.
think."
And with a game like
Cool.
Hearthstone, which I think people. So I used to play a lot of poker. I've had a lot of hobbies, to be honest. I've been a magician. I've done poker. I've done lots of different things. Like sometimes if you catch my stream, like I'll be like playing with poker chips. I've actually set them really far away from the screen because you could ask my viewers. They're always like, we can tell that you're playing with your poker chips because you're playing with them right in front of the microphone. I could hear them. So one of the things I learned playing poker is kind of the odds and expectations. And
Hmm.
I'm always surprised about how little of it really affects a lot of the player base in Hearthstone because everybody's like, oh, this deck is so good. It's a 55% win rate. It's 60%. It's very, very easy to play the best deck in the world perfectly and lose every game 20 in a row. Like, there is a likelihood of that happening because of
Hmm.
variance. It's not a 90% win deck, it's a 55-60. So it's kind of hard as a player to be like, I want to learn, I want to play, but I'm winning some, losing some, and I can't figure out why. So once I'm able to like not care about winning or not, and I'm focusing more on like, am I happy with the play I did? Then the wins sometimes just work themselves out. Like this week, I've been streaming with my, also he's my best friend, Mage. He's a really good guy. He's a streamer as well, and we kind of stream on different days. I kind of learned from him how to stream and things. So we just decided to play. Like he called me. He's like, "Hey, I want to stream this. I want to play Freeze Mage, but I don't have experience with it. I saw you got Legend with it. You want to co-op with me?" I'm like, "Yes." So we actually co-opted Monday on my stream, Tuesday on his, Wednesday on mine, all the way through yesterday, and I always like asked, like I would ask him, like, are we doing okay? Because I wasn't keeping track of the wins, and all of a sudden he's like, I'm not going to say anything because he's superstitious. I'm like, okay. At the end of yesterday, I'm like, well, how do we do? He's like, well, I'm rank 1 non-legend. We went 20-5. I'm like, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't think about it like in the moment, which I think kind of help actually get there to a certain extent. I mean, not superstitiously, but when you're focusing on the process and not the end result, it's
Hmm.
easier to get there. So, like those games, we were learning a lot. We were stopping each other, going like, "Hey, what about remember that turn? What if we would have done this instead? Or why don't we do this other player?" You know. So I recommend if anybody wants to like learn Hearthstone and you're not sure if you're learning it right, play with somebody else. They could be better than you, worse than you. Doesn't matter. Like you learn from each other, seeing what each other's options are. Because half the game is realizing that there's a certain line of play. By line, I mean like
Hmm.
you play this card before the other card, or maybe you go face versus not go face. There's a few games, for example, where Mage Death was like, all right, let's trade here and that way we could clear the board. And I go, what if we just go all face here? And he's like, why? I'm like, well, we have lethal next turn unless he kills 2 of the 3 minions or something. He's like, yeah, okay, let's do that. And we go all face, and all of a sudden the other guy's like, concede. So having someone to like bounce those types of ideas off of, it's super valuable. Plus, you make good friends in the Hearthstone community. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, Major Death's friend of the show. We've had him on a few times and definitely enjoy his vantage point and point of view on many Hearthstone subjects. I like what you're saying about co-oping stuff. That seems to be a thing I've noticed. A lot of people in our community are doing more than I remember it. Maybe it's because the community is starting to reach its a critical mass of people where these are the people that are into it, and people are now starting to go, okay, the next step is now co-oping with friends and growing that way. How long have you been doing the co-op thing?
I've been co-oping with Mage of Death since way before I even started my stream. I think I started streaming like in March. It was really just because I
Of
wanted
this year?
to. Yeah, this year, just because I wanted to give back to
Mhm.
the community, have kind of like a schedule. Like I was starting to get Twitter followers, and I never used Twitter before, and I'm like, what is happening here? Oh, I like
Mhm.
talking to these people. Why don't I give back? Why don't I interact with these people more? Maybe I can get on Velen's Chosen one day. If I just stick my
Wish
hand out,
granted.
if I pay Mage of Death enough money and Sidisi, send Eve a lore book, which I did do one time. Um,
That's very kind of you.
no, I mean, like I just I met him at BlizzCon, and we just
Hmm.
started playing together on and off, and I just realized that I was learning a lot more playing with someone else. Like I would watch people's streams, and the streamers I liked the most were the ones that were responsive to chat. Why? Because I would ask a whole bunch of questions. I'll be like, "Why'd you do this? Why'd you not do the other thing?" And half the time they
Hmm.
would tell me, like, Osmo, he has a really good stream. He has thousands of people, but oftentimes he's responding to chat, as well as he can. For
Hmm.
if I'm interested in Mage, I'll go watch APX Void and I'll ask him questions in chat, and he'll respond to just about all of them. And you learn from that. You ask questions, you hear things. So co-oping, it's kind of it also like lessens the blows when you're losing. Because
Yes.
it's hard to explain. Like I've had some podcasts give coaching and things, and I had a coach, play with me, and we started losing a lot, and he was really frustrated. He was like, "Man, I feel bad. I feel bad because I'm coaching you and we're losing." I'm like, "I don't care. I'm having fun. Like it's better to lose with someone than by yourself sometimes." And I was learning and having fun, so everybody can find a different enjoyment. You learn from other people, see a new perspective.
How would you say? Let's see if I can frame this right. After co-oping and doing all this stuff, have you noticed an improvement in your own play, like a tangible improvement as much as possible?
It's easier for me to spot holes than it is to spot improvements. So I
Mm.
guess at a certain point, maybe I stopped noticing certain things, and that might be it that I'm improving. So, like for example, I was playing with Mage Death, and I also have ADD, so my memory is like minute to minute sometimes. So I'd be like, "All right, you play,"
Fair.
it's like, okay, well, why don't we, two fireballs and then a frostbolt and a ping, and then he's ready to queue it all up, and he goes, "That's not enough mana." I'm like, "Yeah, it is. Two, two, four." It's like, "No, no, no, that's 11." Oh, okay, that's right. I can't do that. So having someone to know before it happens, that way I remind myself, okay, I'm not as good at counting lethal. I'm not as good as quick that kind of math. I need to improve upon that. So I'm able to
Mm.
spot those things faster when I'm with other people. I don't. I mean, I don't think I'm getting worse by playing with people. But some months you're like, oh, I can beat anybody, and some months you're like, I just can't do anything. Like last month, I think I hit rank 5 floor from rank 1 at least twice, like all the way down.
Hmm.
And sometimes you're just like, I don't know
Oof.
what I'm doing, what's happening, who knows. It's good to have someone to talk to and be like, hey man, I'm having a tough month. He's like, me too. I've had that happen to me multiple times. You're like, oh, okay. Everybody goes through stuff, so it's online friends are good friends.
So you say you play a lot of Hearthstone. How do
Mhm.
you, for you, because you say you have kids, how do you balance that high level play, running a stream, and then like family life and stuff? Do you have any like tips or tricks that you use, like do's or don'ts
Mm.
that you want to kind of share with
Get
everyone?
get a good marriage counselor. No, so you have to be mindful of sleep more than anything. Like I only stream twice a week, and oftentimes I don't do for many hours. I just like
Mm.
my kids go to sleep around 7, 8:30 on average, unless they start doing other things, screaming, whatever. So I try to start streaming around 8:30 Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'll just stop whenever I'm tired or I want to do something else. Sometimes 10 o'clock, sometimes 11. Or I'm
Hmm.
playing with someone and they're gonna go off and do something, so I'll be like, all right, I'm gonna end it early. So I'm not super tying myself to a certain schedule when it comes to streaming. Like I want to start on the same days, do everything, but I understand that like I work a full-time job, I work weekends sometimes, and this is kind of my outlet, so I enjoy it as much as I can. And sometimes, sleep is affected by it, to be honest. I've had times where I stayed up the longest like a few weeks ago. I stayed up to like 4 a.m. playing one day. I don't remember what it was. I think it was just because I was in a downswing or something. It was just nuts. 4 a.m. and I woke up at 7 to watch the kids, and that was a bad day. But that doesn't happen very often. So you have to mind sleep and be careful. And Hearthstone's a pretty quick game, so I try to make the game count when I'm playing it. So I might watch streams like when I'm doing other things, but not when I'm playing as much. Unless I'm okay with like this being kind of like a fun, but maybe I'll lose a few games type of day, or because I have to in advance kind of understand, like if I want to like do better, I want to kind of be mindful that be present in this game. If not, I'm not. What am I? Like I play to learn and to enjoy myself. Sometimes it's not the same thing. Sometimes you might be learning but not enjoying yourself. Sometimes you might be having fun but losing a lot. So you kind of have to understand what you're getting into. But weekends I don't play very often during the day. It's mostly at night. So for now, my kids are almost 2 and almost 4. So they go to bed ridiculously early because my wife also gets up really early. So they're in bed by 8. So I've got between 8 and 11, just about every day. And that's my Twitter time. And what the other thing I do, which I'll admit is probably not the best thing, is I watch a lot of Grandmasters just because I really like seeing the competition and like learning what people are doing and the strategy. So sometimes my daughter's doing her swim class and she's out and about, and I've got my phone, while I'm waiting for her to be done with her swim thing, while she's learning to swim. So that kind of thing.
All right. Well, man, that's been some really good discussion about when to game, how to get better, watching streams, improvement, mindset. That's been really helpful, I think, especially for me. I'm always looking at points of view for how to grow as a player. But I suppose we should probably get into the news now.
Yeah.
The few jots and tittles we need to probably tell people about in case they're living under a rock. So Toki's Wild Bundle just came out this week. It's for sale. It is 40 packs of wild cards, wild sets only. So the sets that have rotated out, you can get 40 packs for $35 US. And it's 8 packs from each set, like 8 packs of Mean Streets, 8 packs of Ungoro, 8 packs of Knights of the Frozen Throne, etc. And it will be available through July 1st. Mike, do you play a lot of Wild ever?
So the only time I've ever played Wild was actually when I hit the rank 14 legend and I was too scared to queue up. So by me playing Wild was me pressing the switch to Wild button and playing the standard deck. I think I got to like rank 10 with it. And then
oh wow.
So no, I haven't really played much Wild. Like I don't, my head is not big enough to like know all the cards like you. Like if you watch my stream, I'll just be like, the 3 mana 4/5 that does, So like playing Wild to me is just it's tough. But yeah, I've been wanting to. This is probably a good way to get into it.
Every month I have this notion where I think to myself, I could just be a Wild player. I could just play Wild and just completely forget about Standard. The problem is I have a podcast and I have to know. I should know at least and be versed in the Standard decks. Yep. And I play a lot of Standard. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of times Wild seems just really, really tempting to go full in. But then I'll play something that just seems like super unfair, and then I'll get mad at Wild and I won't play it for a couple days. Like if I play play a big priest at the wrong time of day, if I'm just salty enough, then I'll be like, man, this is stupid, and I'll go play Standard for a while. And Standard feels so neutered sometimes compared to Wild,
and it's good to have that outlet, because like if I'm diving on ladder, there's either more ladder or going to a different game, like so it's good to kind of and you probably get better at Standard because you play Wild and vice versa.
Oh, they definitely affect it. Because your perspective, it's a perspective thing. Like, when you play a deck that can do something just totally just nuts busted, and then you come into standard where you just know that's not going to be the case. So you can say, well, at least they're not going to have, 5 Doom Guards bursting me down,
That's
or
right.
something silly like that. But if you are not a wild player, listeners, this is a great opportunity to start bolstering your wild collection. I'm tempted to buy it just for the dust value because there's a fair amount of wild legendaries that I may or may not have, or just trying to get my dust collection bolstered. And basically, you're still getting a pack of cards for less than $1, and anytime you can get that deal in Hearthstone packs in general, it's a good investment if you are serious about building a collection.
And one interesting thing about that too is if you've never opened those packs before, the new legendary rule kicks in, which is you're guaranteed a legendary within the first 10 packs. So although you're only getting 8 packs each, there's a way higher likelihood to get a legend in those than the normal 40 pack timer that you would have on an expansion you've already opened. So you're probably going to get a lot of legendaries, I would imagine. If you've never opened these packs before, even if you want to just dust all that stuff, now I'm starting to think I need to do this.
Well, $35 is not a bad deal for 40 packs. So yeah, I would encourage anybody who wants to build their collection or who wants to dip their toe into the wild side. I'd say this is a green flag, go.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't remember the last time they did this too. I don't know, maybe it's a once a year type of deal. So I would jump on it.
Yeah, they don't really kind of broadcast the wild sets very much. They've been there. You could buy them. You've always been able to buy them since they released them, because there was a time where you couldn't.
And that's one thing to be mindful of too, is you still can't buy it with gold, right? You can only buy packs with cash in wild.
Yes, you have to buy anything that's rotated out of standard. You have to buy with cash, via the Blizzard website. So you just do it that way. It's not that big of a hassle, it really isn't.
I guess what I'm saying is it's the kind of thing where if you wanted to buy packs in wild any other day, you'd still be buying it with money. So if you ever want to, if you were always going to be open to buying it with cash, this would be the time to do it, because you can't buy it with gold. Other than crafting it, just the cards straight from dust, that's super expensive. So it's definitely something to be mindful of.
Yeah. I have been fortunate to where I really didn't dust that many of my wild cards when wild first became a thing, or when they decided to have the 2 formats. I kept most all of them, so I'm happy that I did, because I don't need too many of them. Because I go through my collection periodically and go wild cards and then just type in the word legendary, and I look at what do I have, and I look and I could buy packs, but I don't really need Lore Master Cho, or I don't need I don't need corrupted Nat Pagel, or whatever that card is from Whispers of the Gods. So
See, I'm like Eve. When I was playing decks, I would just dust all the cards of the classes that I never wanted to play for the longest time. So it's kept me from certain classes,
which classes would those be?
So it's actually funny. I want to pull up my account now, but I don't want to kick off the audio. But I think I was playing, for example, when I was playing Mage and I got to Legend, as I was on stream, I unlocked level 60 Mage. And I was like, that's a thing. Hey, look, I got some basic card I didn't know I didn't have. I didn't play Mage at all until I started
you
playing
hit Legend with Mage before you leveled it up to 60.
Yep. I have 2,000 something Hunter wins, and I think I have 47 Paladin wins. Just a weird disparity of things. So I was Specialist before they did Specialist, except I would switch. I was Specialist with switching disorder. I can't do anything straight for 1 month at a time, then I have to switch again and switch again and switch again.
You were the OG Specialist.
That's right.
So
it's always fun.
In other news, the Mike Dene had a stream with his daughter this week, and he talked about some interesting things in the stream. Namely, he was talking about the replacements for the Hall of Fame cards coming soon. If you remember, back when they started rotating out cards into the Hall of Fame, like Sylvanas, Ragnaros, etc., they were saying, the community started asking, okay, you're taking cards out of the standard format. Are you going to replace them? Are you going to kind of put something in the vacuum that you've created? And they said, yeah, sure, but they haven't really talked about it too much. So now they're Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Now they're basically starting to bring that up again and saying, yeah, it could be coming soon. So that was probably one of the more interesting things in the news. He had a couple other things that they talked about. People were asking questions on the stream. They were talking about how maybe are there going to be new characters, like a hero character. They said, yeah,
Hero skins, yeah.
hero skins, things like that. They were thinking maybe possibly doing one of the heist heroes as a playable character. That'd be pretty cool.
Why wouldn't they? Like they already have all the audio dialogue and everything. Maybe different like regions don't have them in certain languages. Maybe, but if you already have all the emotes there, you know, get someone to pay cash for them. You know, if they're willing to do it, you should do it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think they could have a plethora of heroes, and I don't think anybody would be complaining. I'm kind of hoping for an Edwin Van Cleef hero portrait because Edwin Van Cleef's my spirit animal. But
that's one of the things I think they mentioned in the stream was, you know how you can have like a random card back now, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. He was saying that he also wants to do like a random hero, obviously with the class that you're playing. Like it's not all of a sudden you'll be playing Khadgar as shaman, but
right.
It might rotate between the ones you have. I thought that was kind of cool. I'd like to see that.
I'd like to see that, considering there are now 4 shaman portraits.
At least.
4? See, so Morgul, Thrall, Rastakhan, and now the Thunder guy. I can't remember his name.
Thunder guy, yep.
Thunder guy. Yeah, so there's 4. I think Shaman's got the market cornered on most hero portraits, right? Maybe next to Paladin and Mage.
Yeah, probably Paladin, Mage, yeah.
Anyways, I digress. People were apparently complaining about some of the win rates of bosses in the Dalaran heist. I could see that as a reality. Having played that today, there were some bosses that just kind of felt hard. Based on what your deck were. If you just didn't tamp them down fast, then they would just roll you fast. And that wasn't even on heroic mode, so I could see that. I like that they're talking about being able to adjust the power level of single-player content. I think that's interesting. I don't think we've been here before. Can you remember a time when we've been here before?
At least not noticeably. Like they've had issues where like all of a sudden they'll like nerf a card, like change the mana cost, and then it affects like Keleseth, and all of a sudden they're offering Keleseth at the same time as a different card. You know?
Sure.
Like all of a sudden you're playing like Mage and it gives you Keleseth, and the 1/3 that increases attack. I forget what it was. That's also 2 mana now instead of 1. So I remember like fixes and things, but like straight up changes, I'm not sure. I think it's nice. Like I'm open. I there are some tough bosses. At least when you're playing like heroic, Wing 5, which I'm absolutely stuck on, and I've tried everything, but I'm still trying. Is the last 3 bosses are the same ones, so you kind of plan your deck in advance. Like if you keep losing of a certain boss, you can go, okay, well, this is their mechanic. Why don't I try to build a deck that maybe goes in this direction or whatever? But yeah, it's tough. You still have to sometimes, be like, hey, did I get the passive treasure that I wanted? No? Okay, concede. Let's do it again.
Right. Yeah. I beat the trash out of Wing 5 and regular by having the passive thing that you only can play 2 cards a turn, but it cuts all their cost in half. That thing's dope. I mean, you'd think that, only 2 cards a turn is not good, but when you can play Ysera on turn 4 and then play your second Ysera on turn 5, it gets really gross really fast.
So for you min-maxers out there that are willing to forego your mental power and your time to like min-max this, I had in my normal run, you can turn, or even in heroic, you could turn on anomaly mode. Each time you run, if you concede or lose, you get a different anomaly. The very first one I got is Paladin. I got lucky. It was like all spells cost 2 less, right? So Ring the Bells costs 0, and it has Echo. You play 1 minion, and then you just, for 15 minutes, you start building it to be like a 70/70, and then you just go face.
Whoa. I wonder if that's like a cheat.
Because it discounts all of them.
I wonder if they knew that people were going to figure that out. They had to have. They had to know that.
I've seen some other people post about it. Like that's how. Like I think Jr. and Well Met, he mentioned that he did that. He was like, "Oh, it's so easy. You just do this one thing." I'm like, how would one do this without like getting the lucky combination of passives and all this stuff? But when I pressed the anomaly button, it was the first thing that came up was everybody's spells cost 2 less, including your opponent. So if they're playing a lot of secrets, you kind of have to also play around, vanish and all the other, I guess, explosive trap and all the other things, freeze. You don't want to buff it to 70/70 into a hunter secret that freezes. It comes back to your hand, and you're like, all right, that's not very good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, you got to watch those hunter traps.
I'm very glad that they're updating and making changes. I'm always happy about that.
Well, Mike was on his stream was talking about what the next expansion is going to be. We are quite literally on the cusp of getting teasers and the announcement before the announcement kind of thing, what the expansion is going to be. And Donay kind of on the stream talked about like his favorite expansions were Ungoro and League of Explorers, which are kind of that jungly adventure kind of themey kind of stuff. So I think the next expansion is these kind of hinted that it could be related to that. In fact, I saw somebody point out that on the League of Explorers heroic card back, there's like a little design between the wings of the bird, kind of in the middle, around just above the Hearthstone, and then like that same symbol is on the like the teaser for that. I saw that on Twitter, and I thought that was interesting. Nobody was making any connections other than hey, Donay said he likes it. We've noticed this. So are we going to see Reno Jackson again? Who knows?
I think that'd be amazing.
I think it'd be amazing too. So we'll see.
I would be a little bit surprised, to be honest, because weren't they going to do like a 3 expansion story arc that was that this year they're going to have 3 expansions that are related to each other? Like you have the evil, the element of evil trying to beat up Dalaran. I assume that the second expansion would be fighting back, and here are the heroes that are protecting against the evil team.
Well,
so I was assuming maybe there'll be the League of Explorer.
Here's what I think.
Or something.
Here's what I think. Because at the heist, they succeed in stealing Dalaran, right?
Mm-hmm.
The end of the heist.
You have to go find it.
You have to go find it. So
yeah,
you got to enlist the League of Explorers to find the lost city of Dalaran. Now
the lost city of Dalaran. Hey, that sounds like a pretty good name for an expansion. The lost city of Dalaran.
I just might be be clairvoyant here. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a visionary. I've gotten stuff right before, and people always let me know when I do. Because we podcasters will get like 90% of it wrong, but that 10% we get right, we got to cling to that with an iron fist.
So you remember it, yeah. The listeners will tell you when you're wrong.
They want to go light on hero cards, so we know that
yeah.
hero cards are turning out to be blessings and curses. People have been decrying Dr. Boom now that it's kind of like one of the few in its power level, even though it was nothing compared to the Knights of the Frozen Throne hero powers. Excuse me, hero cards. But maybe one, which everybody's cool with. If it's one and it's balanced, kind of the way Zul'jin is, then we should be good shape. They're looking at redoing a couple classic legendary entrances in terms of animations. You may remember that like they redid Illidan's animation when he dropped on the board, like the demon wings kind of come out now, and it's pretty dope. It's much cooler than it used to be. They redid Death Wings, and with the flame coming across, kind of making
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean it does make the game so good. I mean that is one of the best things about Hearthstone is the animation mechanics with that kind of stuff is just really, really top notch. Mike thinks, to your point earlier, Mike does think a random hero option is a good idea. They are still keeping an eye on Big Priest and Wild. What that means to Wild players means a whole lot of the same old, because they've been keeping an eye on Big Priest for a long time. All they have to do is just nerf the crap out of some of the res cards, and we're in good shape. It's not Barnes. I can tell you right now, it's not Barnes. Because being able to do multiple resurrects of your Lich King that Barnes pulled out and on the follow-up turn and you can't get past it, that's not fun. Let's see here. They say they're working on a lot of cosmetic and stuff like that, cosmetic ideas. And they said they're open ideas. So community, if you have an idea about something, they're not gods in the Blizzard department. In Team 5, they're not omniscient. They don't know everything. They haven't conceived of all ideas. But when you have millions of people thinking up things and you send them the right idea, your idea just might make it into the game. So, send it to them. They're open. They want to improve deck sharing, make it a little more social. Apparently, Ben Brode was a professional rock, paper, scissors player. I'm guessing that's a pun.
Okay.
Because how in the world would you do that, right? See here. Anything else? Apparently, they're Canadian. There you go. So Eve's, kind of woot woot cheering right now. So, anything else that I missed here? Anything you wanted to point out regarding some of the notes?
I just remember when I saw this, I got depressed. I was thinking, man, my daughter doesn't like. If I took my daughter to work and I showed her what I was doing, like, man, I wish I could, do this with my daughter. Like, take her to my work and, hey, we're just gonna, go to daddy's work and, do a stream about a video game. God, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, that would be amazing. But if everybody made video games, nobody would like video games.
Who would complain then? Like, we would be out of complainers, right? Like, you can't complain while making the game. Maybe that's how we get rid of all the trolls. Everybody has to make their own game.
You have now been relegated to making your own video games.
That's right. You open yourself up to criticism. There you go.
Oof, yeah, that's got to be tough. I say that's kind of one of my talking points. Everybody's like, man, I wish I could be a musician, and I wish I'd have devoted more time to it. And I always look at them and I say, I'm glad that you did it. And they look at me. I said, no, I'm serious. I said, not everybody can be, and if everybody was, nobody would appreciate the people who are.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has, but the world needs everything. The world needs people who push the broom. The world needs people who crunch the numbers. The world needs people to, stand in court. The world needs people to be doctors, do all kinds of stuff. If everybody did the same thing, or too many people do the same thing, then what is done becomes very underappreciated, I think.
Yep, I agree.
So,
Definitely
anyways,
agree.
That's my philosophical talking point for the show. So, one last thing, Blizzard. You may remember the Masters bundle. What is it? 20 packs for $20. Was that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think. And the money that was spent on it went into the prize pool for the Masters.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, they capped it out. They reached their prize pool cap. They sold over 75,000 Masters bundles. 75,000 times 20 is a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of money. They said the lowest prize that anybody would receive is $500. So good job, community. Way to support the guys that are spending their lives trying to win and be the pros, guys and gals, I should say.
I was watching a lot of the Grandmaster stuff, so I was curious what the rules were about that extra money. And if I read it correctly, it's cool because they literally give everybody an equal portion of that extra money, like the entire field. All you have to do to qualify is to sign up in person and be there. Meaning, you can't say, oh, I got an invite to Vegas, but I'm going to be at home. I don't want to go and I want the money. No, everybody who showed up gets an extra bonus. I personally, the first question I had, sarcastically, when they said, oh, we met the cat, I was like, when, they met the cap, I said, oh, so you're going to stop selling it now? Crickets. No, they're still selling it. They're just not going to give more money than the cap for some reason. Okay. I'm hoping it's a legal reason, personally, because I'm a lawyer and I'm guessing there's some kind of tax thing. So I'm not super cynical. Oh, it's a big company. They just want your money. They have lots of ways to make money. But at the same time, I'm like, why do you need a cap? If sell more, give a percentage. It's always percentage. So whatever. It's better than nothing.
It's in the fine print, right? It's in the fine print.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, so what? Blizzard makes money selling the game that they designed to make money. What a novel idea.
Yeah, that's what they should be doing.
Because they're not selling it they're not gouging anybody. They're selling it for a good rate for a pack, So so it's a good going rate for the current set. So especially if you were you didn't buy the pre-order or something like that, it's a really good way to catch up. But you can still buy it. Yep. It's still available, actually. I think it's available till July. Is it July 1st? The rest of the month?
I don't know if it's going away. Maybe it is, but I remember that I think the Wild Pack's going away in the beginning of July. I don't know if the Masters one is going away.
Yeah, I don't know. The Wild one's going. Yeah, I think it's limited, but I don't know to what point. Well, we can look it up. So, all right, let's move on to our deck of the week. So, deck of the week this week is dun 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 Freeze Mage. So, I'm excited because I used to play old school Freeze Mage with Ice Block and all that stuff where no, you don't get to kill me. It is probably very appropriate that this is the deck we're talking about the week Eve has to be gone because I'm pretty sure if she has a cold, talking about Freeze Mage would just make her feel worse. So,
And I think
so
I missed that exact like meta. Like I don't think I was around, or if I was around, I didn't know what a meta was by then. But I definitely missed that. I did see a lot of Ice Block when it came to Quest Mage.
Mhm.
That was so I'm still very much allergic to Ice Block. That'll tell you. You can so Eve, don't worry. I still hate it very much.
Well, if you're allergic to it now, if you were to go into the wild meta, the
You'll
Quest
miss it.
Mage, well, it's there, but Quest Mage has been gotten new life with Ray of Frost because Ray of
Oh
Frost,
jeez.
because those cards that
Oh
didn't
my
start in your
god.
hand, the twin spell stuff is just ick. Not to mention the magic trick card. They can get that quest done so easily that wild people are just like, can we please nerf Ray of Frost, make it cost more? Because people are, I mean, Quest Mage sucks to play against to start with because if they pull it
Wow.
off, there's not a thing you can do. But
Yeah,
with
there's
that,
literally nothing.
if you're a good mage player, Quest Mage is the way to go. Just saying, just little something for you there.
I think
So
I just got upset just hearing that. Like I think I need a minute.
gotta compose
All
yourself.
right. I need to call the credit card company to see if I can stop payment on a certain bundle. God. Yeah, no, I'm very much allergic to solitaire decks. I don't know why. Maybe because I think I could pilot them. I just don't want to.
Yeah,
But if
yeah.
that's your thing, by all means, everybody has their own thing.
Have you ever had that experience where you're playing against an opponent and they start cycling cards really fast and it feels like the game just sped up? You ever feel that way?
Yeah.
Like they're like almost like they're doing like a sleight of hand and they're moving really quick and you're like, I should be able to follow this, but this is going too fast. And oh crap, I know what's going to happen. Oh crap, you're going to burn me down. Oh man, there's nothing I can do. And I just like, I just threw away 4 or 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 10 minutes depending on the
Yeah,
game.
it's aggro deja vu. You just see it over and over again, and it hurts every time. He's like, "Oh, here it comes!" Like you're playing against a Shirvala list, and they're starting to run out of. Shirvala is the deck where you're trying to empty out your deck as fast as possible, and
Yeah.
then like you pull the Shirvala card back into your deck. It costs 25. You do Holy Wrath, I think,
Yep.
and it deals damage equal to the cost of the minion. So
Mhm.
it deals you 25. So you start seeing them close to the end of the deck, and you're like, but I want to play my cards. I want to, beat this person. And you're just like, I'm running out of time. And you're like, all right, it's over. Like I can't get there. They have their timeouts. They've got all the stuff. I'm just gonna let them do it.
I played against a Shirvala deck today, and the guy, my opponent, used an Elven Archer to ping his
Yep.
Acolyte of Pain. And I was like, oh, this is so all in. This is not messing around. Like, you don't even care about what I'm doing. Your goal is to cycle your deck out. So, and I was playing Warrior, so I was like, well, if I can get over 50, he can't beat me. You know what I mean? And I got it over 50, and he just made some smart plays, and I was like, okay, here we go. I'm just going to wince while you give it to me,
Yeah, and the Elven Archers, like I think that tech came from one of the Grandmaster games because they were saying how it's so easy to have an equal board. You play equality. You play the 5-mana spell that makes everything 1 attack, 1 health. But how do you kill the minion afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes you just need you don't have a ping in that class. You can't just deal 1 damage targeted whenever you want. So that's like the way to you have because what happens if you do equality with 2 giants on board? The mage goes, thank you, let me conjure as the 8-1 I have left.
Sure.
You go, no, I have to kill this thing now. I don't care if it's going to die next turn. It needs to die this turn. So you play the Elven Archer, deal 1, and that's it. But man, you're just sitting there watching them time out, and it starts reminding you of Ice Block, and I'm just like, all right, I need a deck that's faster. Sometimes so the mage list actually, does pretty well versus them sometimes, sort of.
Probably because you
Maybe?
have the capability of building a decent board if you can do Pocket Galaxy. So let's get into the deck. So we've just kind of reminisced about, we went down memory lane about what Freeze Mage has been. In the past, Freeze Mage has basically been stall, freeze your stuff. You don't get to do stuff, and then I'm gonna Alex you, keep free, and let you do some damage. You'll pop my block. That's fine, and then I'm gonna kill you on the next turn. After you've not been able to kill me again, you having literally nothing you can do about that unless you have a secret eater or something, which I've done plenty of times. So here we go. Here's the list, at least the current list. The list is 2 Ray of Frost, 2 Doomsayer, 2 Frostbolt, 2 Acolyte of Pain, 2 Arcane Intellect, 2 Conjurer's Calling, 2 Frost Nova, 2 Arcane Keysmith, 2 Fireball, so there's burn in this list, 1 Luna's Pocket Galaxy for 5 mana because of the buffs, 1 Ziliax, 2 Blizzards, 1 Archmage Antoninus, affectionately known also to us meta people as Uncle Tony, 2 Astromancers, 1 Giggling Inventor, 1 Alexstrasza, 1 Calic Ghosts, and 2 Mountain Giants. So, Mike, tell me, what is the goal of this deck? Tell me about the goal. We'll get into the mulligan in a minute, and then I'll ask you any question that pops in my head. So what's the goal of this deck?
So to just give you some more background, so I got this list from SoLegit. He's one of the top 100 streamers, and he was posting this list for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I also noticed APX Void was playing a Freeze Mage list. And then I saw Dog win, the championship, spoiler alert, not the event last weekend with a somewhat similar list. So I was playing a lot of, Cyclone Mage. And I was tired of losing to the same decks, and I was like, I want to lose to a different type of deck. I want to maybe have a game versus certain matchups. So what this deck is built around Luna's Pocket Galaxy. It's a 5 mana card. It used to be 7, and what it does is it discounts all the cards remaining in your deck, all the minions, to 1 cost, which is just super valuable. It's not really a game plan after that. You just survive and win, and just kind of try not to die. Mm-hmm. Now, what I like about this list is it has Luna's Pocket Galaxy, and yes, you have to have it in this deck. If not, you probably should play a different deck. But many games you don't need it, and you don't play it, or you don't get it. So this week I was playing with Mage of Death all week. We went 20-5 with this list, and we probably played Galaxy maybe 5 times, 6 times, maybe less. We didn't see it some games. Sometimes I'll even joke, I'm like, I put it in the list, right? We haven't seen it, but you can still win with it. And it's a similar game plan. So the main difference between this list and the one you see on Vicious Syndicate, which is interesting because Vicious Syndicate says it's a tier 3 list. It loses quickly versus, Hunter and all these things. And then I look at their list and they're missing the key feature, which I think makes this list really strong. It's the Arcane Keysmith. It is bonkers. You can do some really bonkers stuff when you think about what it can do. So for example, if you're playing in the mirror, so what Arcane Keysmith is, it's a 4 mana 2/2. You play it and it lets you discover a mage secret and it just puts it into play. So let's say you're playing in the mirror against a mage opponent. You don't know what kind of mage it is, but you're guessing they run giants because every type of flavor of mage runs giants now. You play Keysmith on 4, and you play it, and you discover a secret and play it, right? Now if I'm playing against you, Grant, and I play that on 4, and you have giants in hand, and you have a spell in your hand, are you going to play a giant right on the board?
Probably
so there's
not.
mirror entity. You have to think about it because if it's mirror entity, I'm giving the other opponent another giant. So mirror entity, if I remember the secret name correctly. I'm really bad with names.
It's mirror entity, yeah.
If you play a minion, it spawns on the opponent's board. And they make a copy, and you're like, man, now they're ahead. Well, what if it's Spellbender? Spellbender is if you target a minion with a spell, it changes targets and it hits a 1/3 instead. Conjuring a 1/3 on your side of the board is really great, especially since they won't be able to conjure on their side of the board. So there's a lot of mind games. And other thing you can do is sometimes your opponent will do the same thing to you. They'll play this, and you'll maybe guess it's a mirror entity. You play Doomsayer, and now they have a Doomsayer on their side of the board, and the start of their turn, they lose everything. So having Keysmith is very valuable in this matchup, in the Hunter matchup, for armor. Just to have armor versus the, Bomb Hunter is very useful. Vaporize is helpful sometimes. Mirror Entity is really strong. Just to have things on board versus Warrior is great. Because every time you play this, your opponent starts trying to play around the secrets. So kind of like how, Sidisi was last week talking about the secret hunter. And one of the best things you could play as secret hunter or mech with secret is to not play all the secrets in one turn. Because if you play them all in one turn, they just play around them that turn and they know what they are. If you play one each turn, all of a sudden you're like, well, before it wasn't freezing, now it might be freezing. Is it still freezing? Is it explosive? So this one is all discovered secrets, so you never know what it is. Your opponent doesn't know what it is, and it slows them down. It disrupts their plan. They're no longer going to do exactly what they wanted to do without thinking. At least at, kind of ranks 10 through, legend, they're at least trying to, they see you have a secret and they might try to play around or test or something. So it makes those matchups more interesting. And a lot of the other lists run a lot of card draw. They run like Novice Engineer and all these things because they really want to play the Galaxy and they want you to have it because if you don't have it, you can't do anything with the deck. Mm-hmm. This list has a ton of burn, a ton of removal. It can go face, it can go to minions, it could clear boards. So best case scenario with this list is, of course, you get a 1-mana Alex. You Alex them in the face, and you deal 15 damage with, double Fireball, Frostbolt, if you have that. Or you play a 1-mana, Uncle Tony, and then you just start getting enough spells off of it if you can. Mm-hmm, and, Caligos, it's a 4/12, cost 10, but if you can get it to cost 1, first you discover a secret, and the first spell you play that turn is for free. Now remember, if you coin out Caligos, the coin counts as your spell, so you can't get a free spell. So you play that, and you can just Fireball or Pyroblast, right? You can get a Pyroblast, and also there's ways defensively to use it. Like if you run out of freezes, you can say, okay, well I need a Blizzard. Let's see if I can get a Blizzard. Or I have a Blizzard in hand, but it's cost 6, but I want to do other things in my turn. Well, you play 1-mana Caligos and a Blizzard for free. So what you're trying to do in this game, in most matchups, is to stall. Mm-hmm. Now, the Mountain Giants are great, but what I feel is a lot of the games, you don't actually keep them in the mulligan. Because it's not like the Cyclone Mage where you're building a hand size very efficiently. So in this list, the only real draw you have is Acolyte of Pain and AI. So you probably get Mountain Giants active around turn 6 or 7 if you don't have to remove anything, maybe 5. So oftentimes you're playing them later in the game. You're not playing them super early. Sometimes, you obviously want to try to conjure them the same turn as you play them, but sometimes you can't because you're not going to have a massive hand size. So usually when I mulligan for almost every matchup, I'm looking for Doomsayers, Ray of Frost, even versus Hunter. I had a game yesterday with Mage of Death where we had, I think, Giants versus a Warrior. And Warrior matchup is really favored on our side. But, I had a Ray of Frost, I had a Frostbolt, and something else. And we were discussing throwing it away or not. And, we want draw, we want to find, the Galaxy. But really I was thinking, well, my opponent sometimes plays an Elec. An Elec is a 3/4. I don't want to Fireball it, but if I Ray of Frost, if I play Bolt and then Ray of Frost, it's dead. So having early game removal is kind of important in just about every matchup. So I almost always toss the Giant unless it's like a maybe Warrior. I'll keep it once in a while. If I have Conjures, I definitely keep both of them. But just about every other matchup, I'd rather draw into them or get them for free. So if you're on a budget, I really do think you need to have Pocket Galaxy in this list because it really makes it super strong. Yes, I think you can get away without playing it, and you could still, if you have a good understanding of the game and the strategy of how to play the list, I think you could still do well, but it's definitely harder without that extra, 1-cost advantage that you can get once in a while. I had a ridiculous Paladin game a few days ago, let me tell you. I had a Paladin playing Mech Paladin. I don't remember all the things he did, but he played no cards until turn 5, played the Glowstone Technician that buffs everything, and then by turn 6 he had like a 10-13 Mech, a 1-3, a 3-4. He had a whole board. He had 30 health, and I had 3 health. I beat him in 2 turns because I had a 1-mana Alex. I Alexed his face, not my own, because I knew he didn't have any face damage. I freeze the board, played a 1-mana Uncle Tony, and then just started blasting him in the face. So oftentimes the way you win this game, this matchup, is to understand how you win and playing to win and not to not lose. So there's a difference. A lot of people you'll be like, well, he has a board. If I don't kill his board, he was probably going to beat me in a couple turns. That might be true, but then how do you win? Right? He might take longer, or she might take longer to beat you, but you're still going to lose unless you turn and identify what your winning strategy is. So when I had 3 health, I knew that most of the mech lists aren't running Consecrate and things like that. And he didn't have the weapon. So I'm like, okay, there's no reason to to Alex myself, because he has more than 15 on board, obviously. And but I have all this way to freeze the board, slow the game down, drop him to 15. So another game very similar, I was playing against a mid-range list, and they were just pushing me down. I had 2 giants on board, and they thought, I'm going to get Mike. I'm going to play Unleash, Timberwolves. I'm going to drop them down to 2 to 3 health. I'm going to ignore the giants. Okay, well, giants is 16 damage on board. So I played a 9-cost Alex next turn, and he was dead. Because he drops Alex, switches him to 15. So knowing how to win with this deck is very important. You want to draw cards. Pain, Acolyte of Pain is very, very valuable because you want to ping it. You want to ping it yourself so you can get extra draw. So usually I don't play it on 3.
Turn 5, right?
You play it on turn 5. Only against Mage I'll play it on turn 3 because they don't oftentimes just kill it in one shot. Maybe they'll play a Doomsayer or something, but against Hunter, they have infinite ways to kill it with 3 damage. So I wouldn't play it without being able to ping it usually. So you're getting a lot of freezes. You want to play Frost Nova, Doomsayer in the same turn if you can. But the best case scenario is you have Pocket Galaxy in your hand, you have Arcane Intellect in your hand, you have Acolyte Pain in your hand, and no large cards. So the easiest way to mulligan in this list is to throw away anything that costs expensive. Because it's easier to get rid of expensive cards than it is to find low, cheap cards, because there aren't many. So it's better to decide what you don't want than to go look for what you do want in this list. It's a lot easier.
So what you're saying is a general mulligan for this deck. Okay, I see what maybe some of the mistakes I was making with it is you're looking for Pocket Galaxies and always keep, because that just makes it busted. But you're also looking for removal and draw. Those are the 2 things you're looking for based on the matchups.
And stall. And most importantly, Doomsayer. Because you want to be able to freeze enough of the board to stall out the turn. So you want to make the game, take as long as possible. So for example, let's say you do have Pocket Galaxy with coin in hand. And you're like, I want to play this on turn 5. Now, if my opponent has I want to play it on turn 4, right? I want to coin it, play the 5 cost on turn 4. Well, if my opponent has a giant board on turn 4, it's going to be very hard for me to play a 5-mana card that does literally nothing the turn you play it. I'll just be dead the next turn. So what I often do is I play Doomsayer on turn 3 on an empty board, because the opponent has to go, well, am I going to really spend a whole bunch of resources to kill a Doomsayer on an empty board? Nah, I'll just let it explode. Okay. So the value of Doomsayer is it changes the initiative. So in a game of Hearthstone, first player goes first, the person with the coin goes second. First player plays a card, second player plays a card. Well, the other guy didn't have rush, so you get to attack first with it. If you play Doomsayer, it flips. Now you're the first person to play a minion next turn, and now you have the initiative. So I use that to kind of stall the game to play the cards that are going to be expensive. So I think I plan at least 1 turn out, and I'll go, okay, I really want to play Astromancer next turn, because I have some interesting cards that I want to get. If my opponent has a full board and Astromancer doesn't give me a taunt minion, I might be in trouble. It's great having a bunch of really big minions, but not if you're dead. So I'll try to plan that in advance. Go, okay, I'm going to Doomsayer before the turn before, even if it's on an empty board or a couple things. That way, they just will let it go off, and then I have my turn to play things. The other thing I did with this list, which I don't know if it's the best thing to do because it probably adds a lot of information, is I was curious. I said, well, let me make a list of all the different types of minions I can get from Conjurers. And just the idea of, do I want to have a 9-cost card that I'm conjuring? Do I care if it's 10? Do I care if it's 5? So I have an idea of kind of the best cards you can get from a certain Conjurers and the worst.
So you can play to your outs?
Yeah, play the outs, and also I didn't realize how many chargers or rushers you can have at 9 mana. You play, let's say you just have Alex for 1 cost and you have a Conjures. You Alex their face, conjures the Alex, you might get 2 King Crushes and they're dead.
True.
Yeah, there's also the Burgly Bully that's a 9/9 rush. So there's rush cards. So just to kind of have an idea of like where are the taunts. I had one game where I had to like sit back and think to myself, maybe I want to add this card to my list. It was a 7 mana, I think 3/5. It's an ooze that after it takes damage, it makes a copy of itself. So I'm like, I can have a whole board of 7 drops that I can conjure. So I conjured, I think, Giggling Inventor. The reason why it's in the list is because it's a 7 drop. So you can conjure the 7 drop and maybe get another 7 drop. So that's kind of the thought process with this list, is kind of understanding what your outs are and what you're playing towards. Because if you lose track of that, then you're just playing defensively. So a lot of times people lose because they don't know what they're trying to do. They're trying to, they're not saving a lot of burn for face. They're killing off all the minions, and then they realize, well, I don't have a hand size anymore. What's the plan? You have to think, okay, well, now I have to switch gears. Now I have to be on the offense. So if you want to play with this list and you want to make changes, I think the Giggling Inventor is definitely a tech slot. I noticed, SoLegit sometimes changes a few things out. Like he was playing like a Harrison Jones in it, for a little while.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I forgot, because I'm so used to just playing it for tempo because the opponent doesn't have a minion or it doesn't have a weapon. I was playing against an aggro shaman, and he had the Warhammer, I think, and I'm like, oh, let me just play it on the board. And he had like a full durability weapon, and I just drew the rest of my deck and started burning cards. I'm like, oh, I forgot. I draw every time I burn him. I destroy the weapon based on durability. So that's a good tech if you want to do kill weapons. I use this one because it helps me like more stall. So like I had a game versus a mech hunter where he had a whole bunch of really big mechs, but not enough of them to get past the divine shield tokens. It was long enough for me to conjure the Giggling, or to just keep going face with one of my giants. So it's a good defensive tool. So you're playing this list for draw, for Doomsayers, early game, and you're trying to set up these boards where you can play Tony, and feel free to not wait for combo. Like you shouldn't be waiting the whole game for a Galaxy that doesn't come. Like sometimes just playing a Tony on turn 7 on an empty board is amazing. Because the opponent has to either dump a lot of resources to kill it, or they're dead. So you might be like, oh, I want to be able to get all these fireballs. Yeah, but if you have 2 Astromancers in your hand, let them kill, the Tony on turn 7 with all of their shield slams and everything, and all of a sudden you're going to have a board next turn. How are they going to deal with it? So you don't want to be too married to any card. But I've been enjoying the list. I think it's fun.
Yeah, I could see some of the points you were talking about, some mistakes I made. Because when I was mulliganing, I was giving away Ray of Frost. I was keeping Doomsayer most of the time because that's what you used to do with Freeze Mage. I was definitely getting rid of Arcane Intellect, but it sounds like I need Arcane Intellect to get into my deck.
Yeah. Okay. I keep it in just about every. I think I always keep it, because this list has very few 5 drops, and the 3 drops are just really freezes, draw, and conjure. So it's all tech things. Very situational. Like you're not going to really Frost Nova early without a way to like deal with some of the minions on the board, because if not, you're just delaying for a turn. So really Frost Nova with Doomsayer. So on turn 3, the best plays you can do are AI or Acolyte if you think it might survive. Even if you don't think it'll survive, just play it just to start getting the draw going. Like it's very important to get the draw, because there's very little ways to draw in this hand. You don't have cycle, like you can't do like magic trick and try to like a lot of twin spell stuff to build up your hand size. So oftentimes you're not playing giants on turn 5. So if one of the things you might notice, and I'm not like super expert at this, I could be completely wrong, but when you play it, try keeping giants and see what happens. You might notice that, hey, I'm always keeping them and I never have time to play them. I'm always playing Frostbolts on a sludge, like the 2/3 Murloc that keeps spawning Murlocs every time you play a Murloc, you get one in your hand. You're like, no, I got to kill that on turn 2.
Angler,
and then Angler. By turn 5 or 6, you look at your hand size and you go, well, I won't be able to play a giant until turn 8 or 9. But you have 2 of them in your hand. You're like, what am I going to do now? I wish I had X.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because I think I was applying a weird concoction of, Giants Mage, or mixed with older school Freeze Mage, because in older school Freeze Mage, you didn't always keep some of those cards. You're expecting to just stall them out and this and that, but. Okay, so do you keep our King Keysmith? I really liked your points about
just about always. I do. It
just
only
about
only
always.
if I really don't have, like, I'd always prefer to have like a Doomsayer or something. But like, let's say, like, literally the mulligan of this deck, the easiest way to explain it is throw away the expensive cards, because as much as you like having a certain like cheap card, you really hate having the expensive cards. So first do that. But against Hunter, Keysmith is great. Just about anywhere, it's great if you can survive to turn 4.
Right.
So I almost always keep it. It's usually like the last card I have checked on my box. I'm thinking, am I going to keep it? Am I not going to keep it? If I don't keep anything else,
Yeah.
And you would pretty much always would keep.
You really only keep Giants if you have Conjurers in tandem with it.
Not probably, but not even then. Like, only if it's versus a super slow matchup. If I know they're playing Control Shaman or something. If it's a warrior, then yes, if I have both of them.
Not Paladin though.
Paladin, I think Paladin I would too, because they're also very slow. If it's like the Mech Paladin, you can usually like play a couple Giants, but versus Mech Paladin, it's complicated. At a certain point, you can't get past them because they have a lot of shields and taunts. You just kind of have to go face.
Yeah.
But for example, Rogue, I'm still kind of playing with, because if they don't have the coin, they're oftentimes doing nothing until turn 4 or 5. So if you're able to play a Giant on turn 5 and feel comfortable with it, then sometimes I keep it. But usually they don't play any cards until turn 4 or 5, but they can also remove it really easily, or they'll sap it. But I like to play Conjurers against Rogue right away, because if I get the Grave Horror and they sap it, usually I can play the Grave Horror for free because I have a lot of spells. So Grave Horror discounts the cost based on how many spells you've played. So if you are a rogue, I would recommend, if you're able to, sap the Giants and not the Grave Horrors, because usually the Mage has already discounted that card enough. The hand size is a lot harder for at least this Mage list, so it's better to sap a Giant than it is a Grave Horror. So I always feel better keeping Giants if I have Conjurers, but even then, I'd rather have Doomsayers and other things, usually.
Yeah. So if it's between picking a Doomsayer or a Giant, if you have them both in your mulligan, throw away the Giant, keep the Doomsayer.
Yeah, unless it was a Warrior.
And it sounds like probably the most important thing I think you said that I know I didn't do is you talked a lot about playing Doomsayer proactively and not reactively. You're not waiting until they have a board to play Doomsayer. You're playing Doomsayer sort of to maintain initiative so that you can build your board, and so you get in the position of asking the question rather than trying to get an answer.
And all of these cards in this list are a tool to be used. It's not it looks like a combo deck because you have this one card and the whole list is built around the card. But it's a toolkit. There's times where you tempo different things. You play a Tony just because it's a 5/7. Maybe they'll kill it. Maybe you won't get any extra spells. Sometimes you will. So you have to be comfortable diverting your strategy and kind of knowing how you win a game. Like, it's not an easy list, but if you think about what the goal is on a certain matchup, like, for example, if I'm playing against, like, if I know someone's playing Murloc Shaman, I'm thinking, okay, I need to have a whole bunch of removal install as much as I can. I want to be able to freeze, blizzard, have, the Doomsayer go off. Hopefully they don't have an Earthen Shock or something. I want to be able to have a board when they have a board, or wipe their board as many times as I want, as I can. And then end game, I'll figure it out. I'll stall them out. I'll play Astromancers with a couple of minions that'll stick. You play an Astromancer, you get 2 5 attack things. You freeze the board. Now you're dealing 20 across 2 turns. Like, it's very easy to just start dealing damage. So you kind of have to know when to switch gears and when to go face. If you overtrade, if you spend all your removal, all of a sudden you won't have anything to go face anymore. So
makes a lot of sense.
And Kaligos is a good kind of defensive card. So don't feel like, oh, you have to play Kaligos when it's 1, or you have to get Pyro. Like, get a Blizzard off of it. Get a Frost Nova. It's a 4/12. Like, it's not the easiest thing. like I had a game yesterday where my opponent was, and I could tell because they played the turn slowly. They were excited. They played, the Omega Devastator. Bam, destroy the minion, and then they wait and they go, oh no, it's not destroy a minion. It's deal 10 to a minion. It's a 4/12. Now it's a 4/2. Okay, play a second one. So you could tell, it's hard to remove. So you play that, and it's really good, defensively.
Yeah,
I think what other.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it as a defensive card, even though it makes perfect sense why it could be, because the first card gives you an array of spells to choose from, and you get to cast it for free. That's pretty darn good.
And some really interesting tips that I have, like, how you said, like, once in a while you'd make a play and you go, oh my god, that was a good play. I need to remember that. Like, that's something that I just learned and I'm going to do again. One of the things I've noticed with this list is when you're playing against like a mech hunter or something, sometimes the best thing you can do is fill your opponent's board. Let me say that again. One of the best things you can do is fill their board. Well, how do you do that? Well, if you have a bunch of minions and they have a bunch of Death Rattle minions, if you get all the Death Rattle, if they play Snip Snap a bunch of times, and I got a game where I traded a giant into a Snip Snap because it filled their board with 1/1 tokens, and then I play Frost Nova and it freezes. They can't buff any of the minions because there's no board space. They can't play a Venomizer. They can't play anything. So now I've got a turn and a half where I can just go face and they can't do anything. So sometimes you can think about that. And also, conjurers, you can conjure as your opponent's minions. So if they also have a full board and they have one big taunt, or you're playing against a mech paladin and oh no, they have this taunt minion. They have a 12/12 taunt, divine shield. But you also notice they put all of those spells, all those stacked mags on a galvanizer. That's a 2-drop. So if you conjures it, they get 2/2-drops. So oftentimes you can get past taunt minions like that. So filling the board, freezing it. I had one game where I thought I was clever. I Alexed their face. I dropped them down. I froze the board. I'm like, I got him. But I remembered I still had a giant on the board. And what I should have done is killed off my own giant so that my opponent couldn't play a Ziliax and heal up. So sometimes the best thing you could do in this list is to not have your own board. So you have to be mindful of kind of how your opponent can come back from an Alex, or, things like that. So
that's next level, man.
It's fun.
I love it. I love it.
I played Cyclone Mage for a while, and that list it's really fun too, but it's very draw dependent. You have to do these combos, and you have to play the giants, and you have to conjure them. And if you don't have it, you're just waiting to get it. And there's not enough freezes in the world to survive sometimes. This list, I feel like it's a toolbox. You just pick the tool that you want and need at a certain time, and it's fun.
Yeah. Did you say that this was rated as a tier 3 deck list? Is that what?
Yeah, it was. I think so. They said it was like one of the worst, and they said it was only good if you see a whole bunch of warriors. Like you have to see enough warriors because you lose to everything else. But when I looked at the list, they didn't have Keysmith, and I was like, well, Keysmith is core to this list. So the list that they were running is kind of an older list that some people were running. That's just super super draw heavy. You have to get Galaxy. If you don't get Galaxy, you lose. So this list has less draw, but it has a lot of removal. It's got fireballs, it's got Frost Novas, it has Frost Bolts, it has Giggling Inventor, all these things that aren't draw. So you you're not gonna have a massive hand size. You're not gonna always have like a 9-drop Astromancer turn. So that's why I'm guessing that they didn't do it that well. I mean, I've probably gotten really lucky on a lot of bomb hunters. I guess I'm just used to losing so strongly versus bomb hunters as Cyclone Mage that once I started losing less as Freeze Mage, I just forgot, and I guess I assume I just beat them all the time. But it feels a lot more doable with this list. I don't know why. Like you can kill Venomizers with, Venomizer missile launcher is only 6 health. You just hit it with a fireball.
You call it good. Yeah, that's true.
So it's definitely. I think it's fun. I mean, if you guys are bored of the meta, or if you like control, if you like. It feels sometimes more like mid-range because you're doing everything each game. You're not always just stalling. You're trying to fight for board and different things. So if you like that kind of, if you don't like aggro, try this.
If you want to hate on some aggro, try this deck. Well, man,
Yeah.
Mike, this has been a really enjoyable conversation, and I feel like I learned a lot in terms of just how to think about not even just freeze mage, but just even initiative and just kind of grinding some of the rust out of my thinking in terms of just how to play kind of a more control-y style deck. So any final thoughts about this deck before we kind of wrap the show up and tell people where they can find you?
No, I mean, if you guys have any questions for me, I'm pretty open ended. So we'll give you the contact information, but feel free to email me. I mean, tweet me or anything. I'd be glad to.
And where can they tweet you at?
SC24EVR. So it's SC24EVR, not EVER. And it stands technically for StarCraft 2 Forever. But an interesting note is I've never played StarCraft 2. So let me explain. So
What?
I've had that screen name since I was 13 years old, and when you're 13, you just you make interesting decisions. So
Yeah,
when I was
yeah.
13, Brood Wars, the expansion came
Uh-huh.
out for StarCraft 1, and for me, I called that StarCraft 2 when I was small. So I was like, that was StarCraft 2 to me until forever, and then I realized, oh no, that wasn't StarCraft 2, it was an expansion.
Sure.
So that name just kind of stuck. So I had it even before the game came out, so I guess I lucked out. But it's
That's
always
awesome.
fun telling that story because it's like, oh, what's your favorite class? I'm like, well, I like Protoss. Like, well, yeah, but what's your favorite map? I'm like, I don't know. I've never played StarCraft 2. Don't hate
And then,
on me.
and then they're very confused and they don't know why they asked the question.
That's right. You turn it
Uh,
on them. It's like, no, it's your fault for asking.
if you're on stream, where can we find you there?
You can find me at twitch.tv/SC24EVR. I'm there usually Tuesdays and Thursdays around 8:30 until I start losing a lot, usually around 10:30, 11. Pretty easygoing stream. I'd love to have new followers, people to talk to. I'm easygoing. I'm a
Yeah.
lawyer too, so if you want to ask me random questions, it's always fun to have like a random conversation about patent law or some random thing. So
Is that where you specialize in, patent law?
yeah, it's always fun. It's funny when I actually get cases that are like involving video games, and I like understand the gaming, and I'm like
Uh-huh.
looking at what the lawyers are saying. I'm like, they don't know what. Like, I'm like, I read a case today that was with Activision Blizzard. I'm like, nope, these lawyers have never played a game before. They have no idea what they're talking about. It's just funny. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
Well, let's see. If you want to find me, you can find me at WatchmanHS on Twitter. Friend me in game, Watchman #1140. If you want to find anything and all things show related, go on head on over to VelensChosen.com. You can find our Twitter, Discord, Patreon, iTunes, or whatever links there. Could always use more support for the show. You can go on patreon.com/VelensChosen podcast. That cup of coffee a month can go a long way. We have thousands of listeners and downloads every month, and I would say less than 1% of them in any way support the show, even with reviews and whatnot. If you want to support the show non-monetarily, iTunes reviews are very great, and we love reading them on the show.
I just wanted to say one last thing.
Sure.
I apologize. I just wanted to emphasize that this show is amazing, and I've been listening to a very long time. And sometimes it's hard to like know if your voice is being heard anywhere, but you never know who your listeners are, what state of their life they're in. And I remember like my son being born and like me waiting in the room for if the kid's gonna be healthy and just listening to you guys. Different moments in my life I remember like, oh, this episode. So thank you very much for the dedication you and Eve have. It's just nice being part of this community, listening to you, like hearing about your experience in your real world and everything. So just from all of us that might not be able to get on your show, thank you very much.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure. Thanks for saying so. It's very kind. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I never get tired of hearing about people who like hearing the show, and the reasons are many and varied, and it's very wonderful to hear people say, "Yeah, I've been listening to the show, and I really liked this one episode, or I liked when you guys talked about this, or hey, could you do this more, or more of that, or less of that?" That's always cool to hear that. Feel free to reach out, guys and gals and people. If you have anything you want to say, pros, cons, comments, criticisms, it's all welcome. Let's see, am I forgetting anything? Oh yes, before I digress into the next week's show, because that'll be the next time you hear me. Thank you, Jamie S, so much for your support over the years. Jamie has been a stalwart, steadfast supporter of our show. You could almost say he's more than just support. He's a friend of the show. But we really appreciate you, Jamie. Thanks so much. And whether you're out there on the ladder playing Freeze Mage, or losing to Bomb Hunter, or playing Arena, or finishing up the Dalaran Heist, just remember, not all who wander are lost. Take care, everyone. See you next week.
I foresaw this.
Did I miss it?